But I have to admit, I, for one, am disappointed that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, that fight has been called off. It was called off last week. At least it was postponed. And I've bought very few fights. This one I have Netflix already, so I wouldn't need to buy it. But the last fight I bought, do you know what it was?
Was it Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather?
Correct. And I wanted to see this fight. I wouldn't have had to buy it, but I would have. For me, it would have been appointment viewing. And now Jake Paul is fighting Mike Perry, the former UFC fighter who has transitioned to a bare knuckle fighter. And it's interesting. Perry is an MMA guy, but not a trained boxer who Paul has perhaps strategically picked. And look, Perry has some name recognition in the MMA community, but I don't know that he is anywhere close to a box office draw. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Kang, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, your MMA guy knows who he is. UFC guy knows who he is. But I think outside of that, they probably don't. Fight not official yet, but this is what everyone's saying, Doug. That should be announced later today at some point. Because since you mentioned the Tyson fight has been postponed, I think Paul wants to fight somebody, and he's been training. So this seems to be the guy.
Yep. Now, do you think we'll ever see Paul versus Tyson?
No.
Well, they say they're going to be in November.
Yeah, I know.
You still say no?
Yeah.
Because
Tyson will only be older and probably even in worse health for a 60-year-old, near 60-year-old.
And it was his health is the reason they called this off, right?
Ulcers, yeah, because he had an ulcer issue.
Yeah.
He got on a plane, and during the flight, he had a medical emergency where they're asking for a doctor. I mean, he's, I think, 57, 58 years old. This is just not a good idea.
I know you had said leading up to this that you did not want to see this fight because you thought
that Paul's going to knock out Tyson.
And look, Tyson's not an angel, but I think he is the more likable of the two characters in this particular script. And I wanted to see Mike Tyson recapture some of that old magic.
Like in The Hangover?
Yes.
When he knocked out, was it Stu?
Yeah. I wanted that kind of old magic.
He still got it.
And finish off Jake Paul. And bring the Jake Paul boxing story to a tragic ending. Not tragic. Sorry, that's too much. His career to an end. I wanted him to get maybe embarrassed.
Is it Allen or Stu that he knocked out? Knocked out
Allen, you're right. Yeah, my bad.
Stu removed his own tooth.
Yes.
It wasn't from getting knocked out by Tyson. I would have loved to have seen a Tyson Jake Paul fight, but like Kang, there's a big part of me that thinks that Tyson's too old and Jake Paul is too young and big to do this.
Mm-hmm.
This if it's going to be Mike Perry that ends up fighting him. Mike Perry was fine as a UFC fighter, but isn't he undersized too? 5'10", 185 as a fighter. So I'm guessing if he were, I don't know what weight they would agree at for him to box.
Probably 205 or something like around there.
From Flint.
No, Mike Perry he's a crazy madman. This guy is in bare knuckle fighting right now, and he is knocking out people in that. He is still smaller than Paul, and he's not a trained boxer. So this is still on that borderline, sideshow entertainment value fighting. You know, this is still kind of like celebrity deathmatch. I'm not sure Mike Perry has ever even boxed professionally.
So,
I think he's got 2 fights.
Does he?
Oh. According to Wikipedia, his professional boxing record is 1-1, and he's got a knockout. But I don't think that's not bare knuckle boxing.
Now I'm disappointed that the Tyson Paul fight, you don't think it's gonna. You know more about this than I do.
This is my just my guess, Doug.
If it does take place, will you eat a Impossible Dog?
And if it does not take place, will you eat another regular hot dog?
Let's not push it here, friend.
Friend, I think they'll fight. I think they'll fight in November. I think there's too much money at stake for them not to. Sorry, I didn't mean to say steak to you, Doug.
No, it's okay.
It's an easy money grab for both to do it. I can't imagine it. I wouldn't expect Mike Perry to be the guy that beats Jake Paul.
I think he's got a better shot than Tyson.
And do you?
I do.
I hope that's the case because I'd love to see Jake Paul just
Dude,
get
why are you
knocked
hating
out.
on Tyson?
Dude, you don't know how bad I want Tyson to knock out Paul. I just don't. Just
He's an older guy.
fandom out of it. Yeah, this is not a good matchup.
You know what it is? Kang saw me playing softball, and he's like, "Oh no, look at the old guy trying to go at it on Friday."
Could be. That absolutely could be.
And Tyson's older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't set a very good example.
Well, look, if Tyson could get it done, it would be one of the most glorious days in the fight game, wouldn't it?
God, yes.
Do you think the younger crowd though that didn't they didn't obviously grow up with Tyson?
No, they did not.
They may only know him from the reruns of the Hangover on TBS or something. I don't know.
That's what they probably know him as, is that guy from the Hangover.
But they're out there drinking Prime and watching YouTube and doing all this stuff. Like, are they just the opposite? Or like, knock out this old man. Like, get this done. Like,
well, do you remember I asked my kids who I want to win that fight? Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson. My 16-year-old, now 17, said Iron Mike. My 22-year-old said, agree, I just want this JP blank to be over. And my daughter didn't answer. But, yeah, I mean, my kids were rooting for Tyson. They knew who he was, and they rooted for him. I didn't ask how they knew who he was. They might know him simply from the Hangover. But, I don't know. Well, I can say with a high degree of certainty, I will not be tuning in for Jake Paul versus Mike Perry.
Mike Perry?
Yeah, I won't be doing that.
If it's on Netflix, it will.
Unless you guys can convince me that you think Mike Perry can win this fight.
Well, how about this? Perry's last 3 bare-knuckle fights have been against former UFC champions. The first one was against Luke Rockhold, middleweight champ. And the fight ended by TKO when Rockhold retired during the bout. Just too much. His next fight was against Eddie Alvarez, former UFC lightweight champion, the King of Violence. And Perry won by TKO due to corner stoppage after the second round. Corner said, no way, don't go back out there. And then most recently, on April 27th of this year, he took on the bare knuckle fighting championship middleweight champion, Thiago Alves, former UFC fighter, in the main event. And he won by knockout in the first round. 3 former champions, 3 knockouts, 2 technical knockouts.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I'm going to say there's a chance.
I'm telling you, I think personally, Mike Perry has a better chance of beating Paul than Mike Tyson does.
I wish Perry were taller than 5'10", I guess.
Well, I will hold out hope that Tyson does fight him and that Tyson does beat him. But of course, if somebody really kicks Jake Paul's butt, is the whole Jake Paul boxing thing over? Is that what he's fighting against, is credibility?
Yep. If he gets beat by a bare knuckles guy, a former UFC guy,
yeah,
then I think it's kind of done. Unless he fights other celebrities and people are like, oh, I want to see this celebrity fight. Then it just becomes a celebrity fighting circuit. It's no longer, maybe he can actually box in actual boxing.
Gotcha.
But I think he's a better boxer than most people want to give him credit for.